couple minutes early, I think. So there's a couple people waiting. Charles Latora, John Longshore, thanks for stopping by at another live stream. I'd kind of like to make this a regular thing. I've kind of been wanting to do a regular live stream for quite a while, and that has not managed to just fit itself into my schedule at this point. I thought about doing this tonight, just because we did it last Monday, and there was actually a ton of people in. So let me grab, where's the thing to do that? I hate this thing. Hold on a second. I should have had this ready, actually. Share this on Twitter, which is where I do my social media stuff. I'm on Facebook, but I pay relatively little attention to it. Never claimed to be actually good at this. A couple minutes early, so where it's all good. All right, and then we hop in here. Purple Norseman, thanks for stopping by. All right, I think we're good. I think we're good. Very good. Husa? I don't know how to pronounce that name. I don't want to pronounce it. I don't want to pronounce it wrong again. So thanks for stopping by. So what we got on the hook clipping tonight is Operation Mercury, which I've had for some time. They did that sale last year. This wasn't the recent sale. They did it again in the recent sale, where they sold it at a ruinously cheap price. I guess that is maybe a weird way to put it, but I say it that way because I paid full price for it. And then, of course, when they sold Wardrobe, thanks for stopping by. I'm actually clipping today, and I'm not like checking to see if a game is here. I know this is all here because I bought it new myself. And this is going to be the last of the Grand Tactical series of games that I need to clip and organize. So I figured this would be a good way to get that one done. So we'll see how much I get done. I don't know that Robert Reese Jr., thanks for stopping by. I don't know that we'll get I got a lot of it done already, so a great deal has already been completed. This is, these counters are 5/16 inch counters, 5/8 inch counters, so I'm using the 2.5 millimeter clipper on them. The other benefit to that is that my 2 millimeter needs to be taken apart and cleaned again. It's squeaking really badly. And it, I think, would be fairly annoying to do a counter clipping stream with a squeaky counter clipper. Michael Haggerty, thanks for stopping by. Where did that go? There we go. Cool. So I guess the topic I picked, I'm doing this very loosely, right? I'm really doing this just to kind of hang out and with whoever wants to come into the chat. But I figured I would have a loose topic, and since I've been doing a lot of this in the last few months, since, as some of you might know, my income stream has become hampered lately. I've been doing more wheeling and dealing than I had before, and I think some of you might have seen the previous sale video, which that went really well, by the way, and stuff went a lot faster than I expected it to. There's going to be another one of those, and I think I'm going to push a few more of my games than I expected to into that sale. So I may have mentioned you're unlikely to see a video for that until about the first or second week of January, by the way. So, John Longshore, yeah, I mean, it's up to the post office gods. I mean, really, I have 6 or 8 packages right now that are in USPS limbo, and God knows when they're showing up. But, so There's going to be another sale video. In that sale video, there's going to be, at very least, there's going to be another copy of SPQR. I had a number of inquiries about that, especially for the price I was selling it for. I have 2 copies at the moment, and I don't need 2 copies. It's a fabulous package. The only question is, do I get rid of the punched copy that I have, which is the last printing, but which includes the Barbarian expansion, which is the only thing that the last printing was missing, or do I sell off the unpunched copy, which is the current printing? I haven't made a decision on that yet, but I'm leaning towards keeping the current printing, and even though I'll have to clip it again, but hey, that's another reason for me to have another counter clipping stream, right? So I've also picked up a few things on eBay. Purple Norseman, thanks for stopping by. If I haven't said, I have said that already. Yeah, so this is the like historical unit symbols are used in GTS, and actually, I think the first game I saw that did that was The Longest Day as well. I don't know that The Longest Day was the first game that ever did that, because I've seen the authentic period symbols used here and there. Now, GTS uses the Allied period symbols too, which are not identical to the NATO symbol set. They are similar, and a lot of them you will definitely recognize, but like all the artillery symbols are all different, for example. So that's the thing. The current edition includes the Barbarian expansion. So they are from a play value standpoint 2 identical copies of the game. So wheeling and dealing wise, eBay has become a thing now. eBay has changed a lot. eBay has been around a long time at this point. It's changed a lot over the course of that long time that it's been around. And it's different now. I mean, a lot of the things you'll see for sale on eBay now are not the auctions that we used to see, right? Where you put it in for $5 and see where it goes. It's a sale. It's a store sale, right? And a lot of those people who are selling are in fact retailers, and that's fine. But it does mean that if you are looking for bargains, which I am, is why I go to eBay for this stuff, then you might have to exercise some patience. So, let's see who's popped in. We have the Devin, the OG. Thanks for coming in. Dan the Dancing Man from No Enemies Here is in the house. So thanks for stopping by, and we'll see if we can get you a video for this week. I've actually already filmed it, but it's kind of ass, so you may not see it. So we'll see. But yeah, so that's another thing, is that the Facebook Consim Marketplace group is actually a really good place to go to buy. I've sold some stuff there, and I've bought some stuff there, and I think it's actually a really good place to do both. I tend to, at the position I'm in, is that I kind of need the space, right? So that's why I'm getting rid of a couple other things. And I'm not talking about a huge subset of my collection or anything like that. I'm talking about 2 or 3 things, including a couple of things that I went through on that estate thing and thought I was getting rid of, or thought I was going to hang on to. I think I've decided to get rid of the Victory Games copy of Peloponnesian War, for example. I don't need a second copy of it particularly, and it's just eating up shelf space. So it can go to somebody who really wants a copy of the Victory Games version of Peloponnesian War. So I find that, in general, the only real engagement I have with Facebook is with the various wargaming groups and forums and stuff like that. And I'm not like a tremendously regular poster or anything like that. One of the things I did get recently, though, and I think I mentioned this in the last live stream, was the Devil's Cauldron, which is a pretty highly sought after item and was the missing piece in my GTS collection. More on that in an upcoming video, by the way. But it was a situation where it went instantly, right? I jumped on it right away. I was not the first person. The first person bailed, and the seller came back to me and said, "Hey, he bailed. You want it?" And I said, "Sure, yes, I'll take it." So it wasn't like a bargain price exactly, but it was a good and more than fair price. Bearing in mind that I feel like the $400 that you sometimes see it for on eBay is too expensive. I think I think that's a silly high price. Now that doesn't mean that it's silly for everybody, but it's silly for me. Somebody willing to pay that price, you go right ahead. Somebody wants to pay $50 for a copy of Panzerblitz, that's okay. Go right up to Half Price Crooks and get yourself a $50 copy of Panzerblitz. So I was at Half Price Crooks the other day, and they had a copy of the Avalon Hill Bull Run in halfway decent shape box-wise, but of course they had taped the box shut with those clear plastic pieces of tape that they use. And I'm like, okay, so you guys want $10 for this, and it might be worth $10, but I can't tell because the box is sealed. I can tell that it's punched because it's rattling. And I can't open the box. They'll let you open the box, but you can't open the box with that tape without destroying it. Not a fan of that. So I ended up just kind of whining about it and not doing anything. If I'm not mistaken, I might be conflating this with a different game. Hey, Jordan, thanks for stopping by. It's possible I'm conflating this with a different game, but I believe that Avalon Hill Bull Run game was a game that had been sitting around in the offices at Avalon Hill for something like 15 or 20 years. And while it has a really nice cover, I'm not really sure it is otherwise worthwhile. Now there's I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you this or not. The colored stripes on these counters mean something, right? That's the formation that the unit belongs to. Now there's two different oranges though. There's orange with no outline and orange with an outline, and I don't know what that means. And I haven't really exhaustively looked at this rule set. So it's possible that it doesn't mean anything, but I doubt that's the case. I think it's got to mean something. But in the meantime, as far as counter sorting goes, we're just going to go ahead and clip. Whiskey Tango, thanks for stopping by. Yes, this is the Oregon Laminations Corner Rounder. You can get them. You can order them directly from Oregon Laminations. Google them if you want, or you can get them from Amazon. If you get them directly from Oregon Laminations, they are a bit cheaper. I did a whole. I don't want to go through the entire counter clipping explanation. I did a video on counter clipping. Please watch that. It talks about all the different clipping tools that are available at the current time, and some that aren't available anymore, like the C4 corner cutter, for example, which a friend of mine uses one of those, and I do not believe it is worth your time. Thank you for stopping by, Dan. Grey Wolf 31, thanks for stopping by. 4 Oregon Laminations work without fail except the 2mm pliers style on the 1/2 inch counters. Cuts too much from corners sometimes. So, I mean, the whole point of using this dedicated tool for corner cutting is that they will be more consistent, right? But they're not perfectly consistent, and anybody who's used one of these things knows. However, I don't think that's the tool. I think it's the counter. I think there are some counters that are just a tiny, tiny, tiny amount off square. And I think if you have that kind of corner, you might end up taking too much off one corner and not enough off another corner. I have seen that before as well. That said, modern counters from relatively recently published games, for the most part, do not have too much trouble with that. A lot of times, these super duper old stuff from Avalon Hill, in particular, you'll end up with counters that are out of square, and it's pretty irritating. Lead Magnet, thanks for stopping by. I've got all 3 sizes. I've even got a second. I don't know where it is since the move. I'm not sure where the deluxe 2mm went. I will still use that from time to time. It's a repaired copy. Daniel, thanks for stopping by. Jeffrey, you too, thanks for stopping by. But so Whiskey Tango is wondering if anyone touches up the sides of counters with markers. I have seen that, and I have seen it look good, and I have personally experimented with it, and in my experiments with it, it looks like garbage. So that is not something that I have looked at particularly seriously. Now, the other thing is, I think you don't want to use like a black marker necessarily. You want to use a marker that matches the color of the counter. And sometimes you'll have to go to considerable trouble doing color matching and the testing and stuff like that. You need to get markers with absolutely no bleed. I was not able to do that. Like I said, I did fool with that a couple of times on just dummy counters, and I can't get it to look any good at all. So we gave up on that. The other, I've mentioned this, so I don't know if I mentioned in the last live stream or not. But when we're coming back from Denver, we actually stopped at Noble Knight in Madison, Wisconsin, and you can't just like browse their ludicrous warehouse. They'll show it to you, but the way it's organized, it's not organized in a browse friendly fashion. So basically they have a store area, which is fairly significant on its own, but then they have this huge warehouse at the back, and you just tell them what you want and they'll go find it. So that was an interesting experience in there. They have a lot of inventory, and while they definitely have a reputation for having high prices, that is not always the case, and the prices on the website are less than their prices on eBay. So if you want to save a few bucks and that'll make a difference, go to their website for the same inventory, or call them up. I don't know that the prices were different from if you physically walked into the store or not, and it was kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity that we happened to be driving near Madison, Wisconsin, during the business day. So we said, yeah, we'll do that. My buddy spent a couple $100. I somewhat miraculously managed to get out of there for around $40. I bought some old S&Ts to complete my set of the Italian campaign from the Decision era, and I bought quite a lot of stuff out of there. There's a whole room where it's like 50 cents an item, and I bought a bunch of old wargaming magazines, some Fire and Movements, and some Moves, and some Zone of Control. They even had some S&Ts complete with games in there in some cases. Now they were games that one typically sees in the overstock area, like Tito, for example, which I should actually take a look at some point, because Tito does not have a good reputation, right? Tito was kind of laughed at the time, but I think for a lot of the reasons that it was laughed at the time are things that people would say, yeah, that's no big deal anymore. So like the point-to-point map, for example. And it's very plausible to me that it's another one of those way ahead of its time things. So I would like to give it a fresh look. There's a number of those old SPI games and I'm on the record as being of the opinion that not all those, there's a lot of those SPI games that don't hold up very well. But there's also some that are like a decade or two or three ahead of their time too, and they didn't hold up very well, and maybe didn't work as well as you'd have hoped, because of that, because they didn't do those kinds of games at the time. One obvious example that I can think of is the Plot to Assassinate Hitler. Obviously we've seen some recent games on that topic, and including the very well-regarded Black Orchestra, which I have not played, but I've heard good things about. And obviously, it's a very differently designed game. The Plot to Assassinate Hitler has a hex grid, right? And it even talks about, hey, this hex grid represents this kind of notional political space rather than terrain per se. And that's just something that you didn't really see back then, other than in oddball things from SPI like that. Looking back in the chat. Yep, we had quite a few people here again. We're at 32 viewers right now. I'm one of them, but that's a lot of people. And I am baffled that anybody wants to sit here and watch me clip counters. But I'm talking. I like to talk, so we'll do this for however long it feels like we can go tonight. Last time it was about 2 hours. Whiskey and a belt sander would work for counter clipping. Well, you want a belt sander, you're going to use the Hollenspiel counters. So they're on that. So I've actually experimented with those because a lot of those have a few extra counters in them. And you can actually clip those things with nail clippers. Not with the corner rounders. That just doesn't work. But they will actually be cut by nail clippers. I don't see any reason to do that. But because those are, generally speaking, we're talking about games printed by Blue Panther, right? So Hollenspiel and White Dog Games are both going through them. It's a print-on-demand shop. And they have these super-duper thick counters. But the density's almost always really low, and there's almost always plenty of space on the map. I mean, some of the reasons why we clip counters don't apply to those games because of the low counter density and the low stacking and things like that. So I'll mention another favorite online game store, which is Enterprise Games. They are out of Indiana. Now we got a whole bunch of things I want to mention here. So Enterprise Games is one of the sponsors of the upcoming Armchair Dragoons virtual convention, which is January 15th through the 17th. And check out the Armchair Dragoons website for full details on that. I don't know that they have full details up yet, but they have a bunch of details. I'm going to be running an OCS event. If anyone would like to learn OCS, stay tuned for that because it's going to be a boot camp type of event. And we can accommodate 4 players, but it's going to get streamed, so anybody who would like to watch can watch and ask questions and so forth. That same weekend, alas, is the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War online event, which is being put on by Ken Lee, who runs the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War track at Winter Offensive, which of course is canceled. So a lot of folks have asked this question, and so I'll give you my opinion on where the convention scene is at right now, as of where I think it is right now, based on the fact that I don't want to say necessarily zero information, but I have like 0.1% information. I don't believe that any convention earlier than July is going to happen. They're not all saying that. I don't buy it. I think, say, Q3 events are questionable. Q4 events, I think, we're talking 2021. I think Q4 2021, I think, has a reasonable chance of actually happening. Reasonable chance, not a certainty. That's my just impression of where things are at right now. So if you take that for what it's worth, it's, some internet rando's opinion. So, Greg Grant, thanks for stopping by. The laser print smell. Yeah, so if you've bought anything from Hollenspiel or Blue or White Dog Games printed by Blue Panther, you'll notice that they have that weird printing process smell, and it's an interesting thing. Victory Point Games Crisis 2020. I'm not sure I've ever heard of that. A lot of those Victory Point Games things are going for very high prices now, though. Stalingrad Pocket 2. So, yeah, that's something that went in the sale. So, if anybody that missed out on stuff from the previous sale video, tune into the next one when that happens, because there's some of those things are coming back because there's more than one copy. So, Jeffrey is translating a Russian academic article. That sounds heavy. Yeah, I've bought. So NWS is not a used game place. It is a new game place. Their prices are the best in town, and definitely check that out. NWS online. If you Google that, you'll find them. they're not the fastest shippers on the planet. He doesn't necessarily keep stuff in inventory. That's why. So don't be shocked if you don't get it instantly. But if you're not in a particular hurry, and I almost never am, not never, but almost never, then yeah, by all means check out NWS, because you might wait a few weeks for it, or a few months if it's a pre-order from a particular company that's kind of out of his hands. I guess no harm in me saying that was Decision Games. He's got his prices are the better than anybody's. So if you you know, he's doing what he has to do to keep his margins where they need to be. So long as you're not in a hurry, by all means order from NWS. I have bought a fair amount of stuff from him over the years. Greetings from Santa Fe. Watching this while on stationary bike. Yeah, I mean, I've done that as well, actually. I listen to some podcasts and stuff like that while exercising. The Ritz MR has just picked up 4 OCS games, so he's looking forward to the boot camp. Will there be a recording of it afterwards? Yes. So it'll be streamed live when it's happening, and I think it's on Saturday the 16th at 8 p.m. I think, but after the stream you will still be able to watch the video. It'll still be up on the channel. So yes, I started doing an intro video series on OCS, and that whole thing just kind of didn't materialize for me. So I'd like to get back to that. It's a game I'm well positioned to do tutorial stuff on because I play a lot of it. But at the same time, it's a matter of getting it put together, because this might not be obvious to the viewer, but that is an enormous amount of work to create an instructional tutorial video. I watched an interview. I think it was Dan's interview with Ben Harsh from Harsh Rules, who does a great job. But he does like one video a month, right? And that's why, because it's a shit ton of work to put together instructional videos, and he's doing a better job of it than anybody that's operating in or around the wargaming space. That said, he's not going to get to OCS, so I don't feel like I'm stepping on his toes by doing that. So we are officially half punched on this thing now. Where to next? We'll do barrages next, I think. So Chris asks, what do I do about counters with side nibs? So I don't know if I have it in here or not. I have this flush cutter. I bought these from Amazon. They're just a little flush cutting pliers. They can sort of clip off side nibs. They don't do it perfectly, however. So if I know that a game's counters are going to have side nibs, which I hate, I will, if at all possible, obtain an unpunched copy of that game rather than a copy that's already punched. And I will cut the counters from the sheets with a utility knife or craft knife or something like that, or rotary cutter sometimes. I tend to slip with rotary cutters, so I don't like to use them. So I'm more comfortable with the utility knife. And that doesn't really completely eliminate the center nibs, but it alleviates their ability to stick out. So I would prefer not to do that. Yeah, so Jeffrey, the things those end cutter pliers, flush cutting pliers, that's what you're talking about, sprue clippers. You can use those. Plastic modeling folks use those as well. And the set I got here was just $10 maybe, something like that on Amazon. So I guess we're going to circle back to a lot of this stuff, but a lot of it was stuff that we talked about last time because I had just got it. Daniel mentions that he just picked up The Greatest Day. There is some video on The Greatest Day on YouTube, none of it by me. I've talked about it here and there, but I haven't done any dedicated video on it. I'd like to do some dedicated video. I will tell you that Nathan Wise Guy History, his channel has done a GTS tutorial video, which is it's a one video, like an hour and a half video thing, and he worked with Operation Mercury rather than the Greatest Day, but it is totally worth your time to watch that. BCS, I will tell you that I have done a decent amount of playthrough content of BCS. Look back in the channel history for our Brazen Chariots games, and you'll see some of that. Some more talk about BCS will be coming from me in an upcoming video. I actually kind of hustled over the last couple of days and got the rest of the year's videos done and uploaded and all that. And I even got the weekly video, like the videos I can schedule far enough in advance. I even got the first 2 weeks of 2021 done. These are the unboxing videos. So, also, I spend probably way more time on doing the video thumbnails. What get called the video thumbnails, what I call my title cards, considering that I don't use them in the videos. But I made new ones for 20. I did a new style of unboxing video title card for 2021, and I'm really happy with it so far. I previewed it on Twitter the other day, so there should be a Twitter link in the video description here. There is. I'm not encouraging anybody who isn't already on Twitter to go sign up for Twitter, but if you're on Twitter, then by all means follow me. At some point, I'll mention this too, at some point, I want to do a giveaway to help increase the Twitter following. Also, at some point during these live streams, not tonight, because there's just enough stuff going on right now. I'm reluctant to, another reason why I'm waiting till January to sell more stuff is the post office is fucked right now. And I am having a tough time dealing with that, and I don't want to stress anybody else out either. So, because I actually thought about doing a giveaway tonight, and I decided after some contemplation that we will wait until a couple of weeks go by before we do that. But at some point during these live streams, there'll be a giveaway or two. Just not this week. So, I might as well say, because otherwise I will forget, everybody have a great holiday, because we're not going to have another live stream between now and Christmas. So, although I'd like to do one next week, and then we can talk about New Year's, and that'd be great. So there's an unboxing video and a sort of commentary video coming this week and next week. Catching up to the chat. OCS, own like 4 games in the series, have not played a single one since the rules just don't click in my head. So OCS is a challenging game system to understand. Okay, I'm choosing that word very carefully. Okay, because you can play it without understanding it. The rules are somewhat fiddly, but not crazily fiddly or crazily complex or anything like that. People can learn OCS, but this is especially true if you are trying to learn it yourself. As a solitaire exercise, there's a big gap between, hey, I've figured out these rules, and hey, I can play with some level of competence. There's a gap there, right? So if you are, you might have the rules down and you just haven't played enough of it against somebody who has some idea of what they're doing, and you're going to get your pants taken down and you're going to get spanked. And I have both been that person. I've been on both sides of that, right? So, at this point, as somebody who has played up until relatively recently, due to the pandemic, OCS basically once or twice or 3 times a week, every week for the last few years, with competent local people, and we have an abundance of competent local OCS players around here. Like I said, I'm reasonably well equipped. Well, I'm not by any means the most skilled OCS player you're ever going to encounter. That's definitely not the case. But I can point out many of the more boobtastic errors that an inexperienced player might make. And a lot of those are just things, you just play. Just play it, and but if you're doing it yourself, you're trying to teach yourself strategy too of how to play the game well, and that's very difficult to do. So hopefully we'll get to talk about some of that during the boot camp, and then hopefully we'll get to circle back to the topic at a later time. Jeffrey loves Hexasim's Eagles series counters. That's the Eagles of France series, like Waterloo, 1815, Fallen Eagles. And there's an Austerlitz game, and a Quatrebrag game, and a Ligny game. Those are, in fact, really nice counters. And I like... In fact, they're very pretty games in general. And they're supposed to play fairly well. So... I got rid of them because I decided that for that scale I was going to be happier with the Library of Napoleonic Battles. For a number of reasons, one of which is I like the scale a little better, for one thing. And I think, while maybe not as flashy as the Hexasim games, they're still really attractive games. The maps in particular are really, really nice. And every year you get a new module with 4 to 6 new battles in it. And Hexasim is not meeting a pace anything like that. So I have, at this point, missing 2 volumes in that series. I have substantial coverage of the major battles of all of the Napoleonic Wars, period. So, thank you, Mr. Ritz, on the new title card. I'm pretty happy with it. It's gonna bite me in the butt when the time comes when I have an unboxing video of something that there isn't a good screenshot online of the cover, which is kind of one of the reasons why the old title card format was what it was, because it was somewhere where I could use a more half-assed picture. No, we're going to be driving on Christmas Day. It's not a bad idea, actually, because, at night at Christmas, if you're not traveling, a lot of people are bored to death. And it's a traditionally, a lot of drinking happens on Christmas evening, or people go to the movies, but nobody can do that right now because there's a plague. So we are drinking one of my total favorites here. Not sure if you can see it. Kalila, 12-year-old. It's my favorite scotch. At least my favorite sub $100 a bottle scotch. Let me put it that way. So Greg Grant tried to learn BCS, wasn't grasping it. So we played, and again, you can see video of this. We played through quite a bit of Brazen Chariots and some of Baptism by Fire. And I really like a number of the things that BCS was doing, right? I really like the snafu mechanic. I really like the way the supply works in that system. I found fascinating the way the unit dynamics work in that system and the various layers of combat that you can have. But then when it came to, things like artillery, I felt like it really kind of just didn't hang together. So on the one hand, you have this pool of generic artillery points, but on the other hand, you have specific artillery units on the map, which happen to be the German 88 units, that I think are really overpowered in a way that I think doesn't make a ton of sense. Air is also heavily abstracted out, where there is a very small pool of points which you may or may not get on any given game turn, and it is basically a shift. You might be able to do 1 shift per day if you're lucky, and that just doesn't reflect the value of air power in the Desert Campaign. It does kind of make sense in the last Blitzkrieg, because the Germans launched the offensive when it was overcast and the weather was shitty, so that the Allied air power would be less of a factor. After it cleared up after a week or two, then Allied air power suddenly became a much more significant factor. What I didn't think to do here was to get baggies and have them handy when I started clip encounters. So, oops. This came up the other day. The last Blitzkrieg, which is it's a great package, doesn't cover all of what a lot of folks consider the Battle of the Bulge. It covers basically the extent of the German offensive. It does not cover the Allied counteroffensive, so it only covers like 10 or 14 days. Operational Napoleonic game where you fight a battle, go do complete tactical. Yeah, so you could kind of do that with some of the Zucker stuff if you want. I mean, you're kind of bashing that together if that's what you're trying to do, but it's theoretically possible. I've had discussions with people about doing that with Civil War too, where you do the campaign on an operational level using, say, U.S. Civil War, or a strategic level, or a high scale, using, say, U.S. Civil War or Victory Game Civil War, and then when the units get into proximity to each other, you then zoom in using great campaigns, and then when they clash in an actual battle, you then zoom in using, say, great battles of the American Civil War. While this is a nice idea, none of these product lines have the scope to deal with it, right? So, oh, there's a battle here in Missouri. Well, we don't, there's no battles in the Great Battles series that cover a battle out there. So there's no map for it. There's no Great Campaigns map for it. There's no counters for such a counter mix, if such a thing were to occur. So you're kind of designing your own thing at that point. And that's not to say that it's not worth doing. I think it's a cool idea, but it's a big bite of stuff to take upon yourself to do. So Total War Napoleon. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the idea. That is kind of what the Total War video game series does. Back in the day, I played quite a bit of Rome Total War, the first one, and quite a bit of Medieval Total War, the first one. And I have the new ones, and I just don't think they're very interesting anymore. And they are, awesome, by the standards that I would have applied to them when the first ones came out. I have changed as a gamer. And the strategic game just doesn't seem to make any sense. Why am I exploring Europe as Napoleon, for example? Napoleon had maps. He doesn't need to explore. In fact, even the Romans had maps. I mean, it wasn't. They weren't just striking out into complete terra incognita where you have this fog of war on the map. It's just weird. The tactical thing, I don't really care for the controls, so I appreciate that people like them. There's whole channels that are dedicated just to doing Total War battles, and that's great. And it is, kind of computer wargaming, but it's just not something I felt like I like anymore. From Matrix Games, the War in the Pacific Admirals Edition is on sale right now. It's like 80% off. It's normally something like $80, and right now it's something like $17. So if you've ever been interested in that, go grab it now. It's on sale until, I believe, January 10th. Unfortunately, that's not a title that's on for sale from them through Steam, and I'm not sure why. All right, more counters. Well, looks like we got plenty of suppression counters to do. So yeah, I was looking at the Lord of the Rings living card game just today, and there's like a flyer in the box. I have the game, and I really haven't looked at it yet. I've had it for 6 months, and in the box there's a flyer for a video game version you can play on Steam. Now sometimes these turn out not to be quite the same game in greater or lesser degrees, so I don't know whether that's the case with this one or not, but that particular game looks interesting, and I'm a big Tolkien nerd, so I expect to get that played eventually, and maybe we'll even do that during the off week between holidays here. That would be kind of cool. Let me make an adjustment here, because I feel like I'm squinting a lot trying to look at the chat. There we go, that's better. Yeah, so there's also third parties doing like those or game organizers that fit in the game box too. Is it Broken Token that does that? It might be. And they're really nice. They're usually that laser cut wood stuff. Are these all double-sided? They are. Okay. But yeah, there's at this point, the board game hobby and the video game hobby are actually, I think, feeding one another. So if you were to go to Steam or GOG or someplace like that and look for video game adaptations of board games, in some cases, including war games, you will find them. There's one Euro game, unabashed Euro game that I do like is Lords of Waterdeep. It's one of the D&D games. It's the best of the D&D board games, the modern range of D&D board games, anyway. And there's a video game version of that. And you know, hey, when that pops up on sale on Steam, I picked it up. Why not? So I forget whether I have Victory and Glory or not. I might. So Chris, let's see here. Purple Norseman mentions Time for Trumpets. So my understanding of that is, and this is based on hearing Bruno talk about it, is that it's basically bitter woods with a few extra layers of chrome on top of it. There are folks who, you know, because had that in development for a long time, and he's had playtests of that happening for a long time, and it definitely has its fans, and it's a great scale for the Bulge. If you really want to dig into the Bulge, battalion scale is where it's at. I have a battalion scale Bulge game in the Decision Games Goss Vakdam Rhine, so I don't really need it, and it just, the timing of its release was bad for me because of money. So so I did not pick it up, but it looks like an interesting game, and I definitely like the components. I like the map. I like the counters. I like what he's done with a lot of what I've heard about the mechanics. I did have a conversation with him about that at Winterfest a couple years ago when he was there running playtest games of it. It looks like a nice game. I have a couple of Bulge games. I should have got some water instead of just whiskey. And I don't know that I need another one, right? I got Ardennes 44. I've had Bitter Woods and ended up getting rid of it. I really like Ardennes 44. And I haven't played the Goss Vakdam Rhine, but at some point I'd like to play it. It's definitely going to be a meaty treatment of that topic. So Steam's Victory, John Longshore says, Steam's Victory and Glory puts the board game Victory and Glory to shame. I've heard that. I may have heard it from you, in fact. But I don't know if... Do I have that? Maybe? I feel like I bought it, but it might have been something different. Yes, I did buy it. Maybe I'll check that out again. I haven't really done much in the way of video games. Let me rephrase that, because that's bullshit. About 2 months ago, I started playing World of Warcraft again. And you might have seen some of the streams over on Twitch. There is a Ardwulf Lair Twitch channel, which is occasionally active. And then the expansion came out, and I started playing that, and I kind of played the crap out of it for about 2 months, and then I just kind of hit a wall, and I just really needed a break. So I'm taking a break. And so I haven't actually picked it. I haven't touched it in about 2 weeks now. Which makes me think maybe it's time to go back. But on the other hand, because they've made some changes to things that I didn't like Torghast, which was just like torture. So maybe I'll check that out again. I've actually been doing Mass Effect stuff again. So the big new hotness in the world of video games is, of course, Cyberpunk 2077 from CD Projekt Red, which is the same development folks that do the Witcher games, okay? Really, really highly anticipated. They've been talking about it for a long time. Keanu Reeves is in it. It definitely looked like and sounded like it was going to be amazing, and it has fallen and shat its pants, as far as I can tell. There's a lot of bugs, not just a lot of bugs, but like in a lot of cases, show-stopping bugs, like bugs that will corrupt your save games and stuff like that. On some consoles for which it has been released, like the PS4, it works like garbage, to the point where Sony pulled it off their store. It sounds like a total disaster. So boy, I'm glad I didn't spend that money right now, considering that new video games cost $60. So, Steam's Twilight Struggle. Yeah, I have that, and I've played it a little bit. I really like Steam's Twilight Struggle, even though I think the AI opponent is not all that great. It's a really good medium by which to bone up on Twilight Struggle, because familiarity with the game definitely helps you win. So if you want to be a competitive Twilight Struggle player and you don't have somebody to physically play with every week, yeah, by all means use the Steam, either the Steam game, or there's a mobile version as well, if I'm not mistaken, which is probably identical, functionally identical. Lock and Load Tactical is doing computer versions. Those so I have a fairly strong opinion of. Well, let me rephrase that. I have a quite positive opinion of Lock and Load Publishing as a publisher, and of the Lock and Load tactical game system. It's just too bad I just don't have space for anything that they're doing in my life. I don't have room for another World War II tactical game. I don't have any interest in a modern tactical game. And so much of what they do revolves around that. And at the same time, I think that as a publisher, that in terms of engagement with their own community and online presence and all that, they're doing so much right, which is why I hassled David every time I talk to him about Trial of Strength, because that is something that I'm very interested in. And if you're unfamiliar with that, it's a new edition of an old classic from Panther Games, and I believe it's still Panther Games is doing it. It's just that it's got to be published by Lock and Load, and I think they're going to do a Kickstarter for it. That was supposed to happen in 2020. I who can blame anybody for shit not happening in 2020? I mean, so that it easily could have been the problem. So yeah, I have a very high opinion of Lock and Load. I own none of their games, and I have no plans to buy any of their games until such time as their edition of Trial of Strength comes out, which that's totally worthwhile. I had the old one, and another one I should never have gotten rid of, and that's a really good and interesting high-level treatment of the East Front. Really nice game. Now, there will be at least one East Front game in the next sale round, by the way. It'll be No Retreat, the East Front No Retreat game, which I have just had for years, and I am unable to get into it after several attempts. So, I've got, not sure you can see it because it's behind me. I got Lucky Forward, which is the new Goss game back here. Looks really nice. They've made some improvements to the component quality, which I really like. I will tell you that you definitely want the new version of the rules that's available on their website rather than the ones that come in the box. Atlantic Wall is the one that I've played. I had a great... I've already talked about the drama that we had the personal drama that we had during that game, so I don't want to mention it again. But the game I had a great time with. I thought it was a lot of fun. Very happy to play that again at some point. And when we start having Winterfests again, then I have pretty good confidence that we will end up playing Goss again at some point. Oh, gee, I am delighted that I'm hearing a lot of issues from PC users as well. So at least from the talk I'm hearing. So anyway, I am delighted you're having fun with it. It looks great, and I'd like to pick it up at some point. I have just decided to wait until such time as they have patched all the nonsense away. So I'll give it a couple of months. And by that time, maybe it'll even be on sale. The other thing that I was looking at that came out relatively recently was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I have bounced fairly hard off of all of the Assassin's Creed games that I have tried. But it looks really cool. And unfortunately, it's only available from the Epic Games Store, which is not something I do. So I was not able to pick that up. Even though I might have. To be honest, I might have. Right now, priorities for me are actually. I guess I'll talk about this since I don't have a video talking about this. I have a 2020 retrospective video coming out right just before New Year's, so watch for that. But what I didn't talk about was the kind of stuff I want to do for the channel in 2021, and I might do another video on that. But in the meantime, since I'm talking, and we can maybe solicit some ideas from all the folks that are here. I want to do. I picked up a big stack of stuff from White Dog Games, most of which, no, that's not true. Some of which you've seen the unboxings for already. This was months ago. Um, with the understanding that they're solitaire games. All the ones I bought are solitaire games, and um, they're all relatively small footprint. Don't take a million years to play, type things. So these kinds of games are games that will make good video because they're easy to do. I can do a total of let's say 2 or 3 hours of finished video, um, it broken up into a number of episodes, and it's a nice digestible playthrough series that people can watch. That said, that 2 or 3 hours of video that you see at the end of the process is probably closer to 6 or 10 hours of video, of me filming it, and then another 20 or 30 hours of me editing it. So I'm not the world's greatest or most patient editor. That's for sure. And I don't think, unless something happens where some editor makes themselves available, I don't think this will ever be a big enough operation for me to hire somebody. Yeah, OG says Black Flag is the best. I keep that goes on sale all the time on Steam, and I will at some point pick Black Flag up. And the last one, actually, whatever the last one before Valhalla was, that actually looked pretty good too. I think it was Odyssey. One of our folk, Evil Dr. Ganymede, not sure what he's called on Twitch, did streaming of that. He's a wargamer too, and he's on Twitter as well. I started following him. I mean, I knew who he was from years and years ago on RPGNet, an old tabletop RPG forum, which is still around, but I don't really go there anymore. Somebody had asked about the Next War series. I forget who that was. I don't want to lose track of the chat. So I do have the whole series behind me. They're all out of storage now. And India Pakistan is the only one that's punched. So a couple of years ago at 2 years ago at, was this last year? I think this was last year. At Buckeye Game Fest, we actually had India Pakistan, one of the basic scenarios for India Pakistan, set up as a side game that we were playing from our main game, which you could, as you can probably guess, was OCS. And it was our second side game. We had a side game of Der Weltkrieg set up, and then a second side game of India Pakistan. And we finished the scenario of Der Weltkrieg that we were playing. It's just the Tannenberg scenario, so it's pretty small. And the India Pakistan game was like, well, yeah, this is really cool. I really like this. We both landed exactly at this exact same spot. But I don't think we're giving it a fair shake here in the, as like the second backup game that we're playing on the side. So let's make an effort to get this thing on a real table at some point soon. And then 6 months later, the planet was on fire. So at some point, we have a number of people who are into that topic locally here. So I am very confident that we will get a real game of it going at some point, which may even be a big expanded Asia World War III thing with Korea, Taiwan, and Vietnam, which would be really neat. There are rules for that I believe in Vietnam. So Grey Wolf says next goal is to learn GMT's Next War and Fields of Fire both within 1 month. Fields of Fire. So I did the unboxing, right? I'm not sure if I'm spelling a big secret here when I tell you that I filmed that unboxing video like 3 months ago. I have done no work with Fields of Fire since then. Lots of people have complaints about how hard it is to learn, but those who have learned it have a really high opinion of it. I'm not sure I'm going to get to it anytime soon. I think I would be better off. I think I would be happier working on Next War, but that does not mean that is the same decision that you have to end up making. So different people have different priorities and different tastes, as we found out the other night on. I might mention that. Might talk a little bit about that too. Uh, I think that there are rules in Vietnam for combining all three, I believe. Okay, John Longshore says you need to make a spreadsheet on Mongoose Traveler. So many new books, so few Kickstarters. Can't tell what I have and need anymore. Yeah, so that's one reason why I have, and I'm really behind on the RPG side. The only up to date list I have where I have a spreadsheet where I track all my war games, right? So I know what's coming in. I know what I have on pre-order. I know what what I want. I don't have to say, oh, do I need that? I can just look at it. I should have that for RPGs too, but I don't. The only thing that I'm caught up with is Traveler, and I am really delighted with. Unfortunately, the Traveler book that I need right now is not one that I found. It's got to figure out where it is in the storage unit. But I've been working on a spreadsheet to do system generation in Traveler 5, which is the current standard for travelermap.com, which is why it's the only reason I would use Traveler 5, as far as I could tell. And I pretty much have the whole thing automated at this point, at least to the extent that I can without writing extensive Visual Basic Code, which I don't want to do. So, I doubt anybody has tuned in to listen to me talk about Traveler, however. But I will mention that as on the general subject of things I would like to bring to the channel at some point in 2021, and I've said this before, I would like to do a tabletop RPG thing, an online tabletop RPG thing with people from the internet. And I don't have a firm schedule for that. And I actually had a face-to-face group that was like forming right when the pandemic broke out. So we had one session and then it was plague time and everything went to hell. So, as far as what that RPG thing would be, it is overwhelmingly likely. Not that it's the only possibility, but it seems most in character for me if it were to be Traveler. If it's going to be some kind of fantasy, then I would do something using Harn, which is something else I like. As I am, at some point, right? And I'm not one of these. There's other folks who are like, hey, I'm getting super old now, and I have limited years left. I need to focus on things I'm actually going to play. I'd like to think that I have more than super limited years left, but at the same time, your most valuable commodity, and all of our most valuable commodity is time. And the fact is that I have more games than I have time to dedicate to them. So, at some point, you need to start making decisions about, hey, I'm going to stop buying this stuff, or I'm going to sell this old stuff off, or something like that. But there's a balance to be struck, right? There's the fact that I don't want to friggin' buy ASL again, for example. That we're not doing that again. I've done it a couple of times now, and I don't want to do it again. So there are things that I am making a decision that I want to step away from. Certain games, right? So one of the games I'll mention so nobody draws the wrong conclusion from me talking like this. Red Storm, right? GMT's Red Storm came out a couple years ago. I've played it, actually liked it quite a bit. But here's why I bought it, because it's basically like an operationally flavored air game. And that's a cool idea. It's an idea that I wanted to explore, and NATO versus Warsaw Pact is a topic I don't have zero interest in, but it's not one of my favorite topics either. So I bought it, and we played it at Winterfest, and we played a scenario of it at Winterfest, and I liked it. But then I learned that, hey, there's another game, and it's not really the same mechanics, but it's the same family of games on the Battle of Britain. Well, hell, that's a lot more interesting to me. It's The Burning Blue, and it's out of print, so I got a copy of that, and I'm happy with that. So I'm going to get rid of Red Storm. Looks good. It's unpunched. Be happy that somebody makes Somebody really happy? Somebody who's more interested in that topically than I am. So it's just something that's like, yeah, you know what? This was a game I probably shouldn't have bought, to be honest, because I'm not interested enough in this subject. And at this point, I feel over invested in the NATO versus Warsaw Pact subject. Okay, so bearing in mind that I have Iron Curtain, I have Red Storm, I have the 1985 Under an Iron Sky, I have the Frank Chadwick Third World War reprint from, or revision from Compass coming. That's really way more games on that subject than I want. So, I am reasonably, because I've played it, and I am reasonably sure that what I will end up keeping is probably Iron Curtain, but maybe not. Definitely the Third World War whenever it comes out, and honestly, I'll probably sell Under an Iron Sky. I did start punching it, but it's all there. I can personally guarantee that it's all there. It's unavailable again, so I'll probably get more than I paid for it. I don't want to charge $400 for it, which probably I could get, but I don't want to try that. So you may see that in a sale as well. Punched copy. Okay, so you're asking me. I'll give you two, Bill. I'll give you two answers on that question. So Bill's asking, what's a fair price for Case Blue? A fair price for a punched copy of Case Blue is $250. That's a fair price. If you have a punched copy of Case Blue, can you get more than that? Yes, I think you can. I think you could probably get $400 for it. You might have to exercise some patience to do that. And it's a punched copy, right? My copy that's still down here, still getting verified, which will be an ongoing process for some months, is probably missing at least some counters. I've come to that conclusion. Not certain yet because I'm not done, but it's almost certainly missing some stuff. If you can, give your personal guarantee that it's complete, then I think $250 is a fair price. I think you can get more. And I think if you dump it on the Facebook Marketplace group, first put it up for $300, I think somebody will probably buy a punched Case Blue for $300. See, we've played it here locally, and we'll play it again at some point. So I feel very comfortable having such an enormous game in my library. That's not my issue with Under an Iron Sky. I'm just oversaturated on that subject. A buddy of mine wanted Iron Curtain, so I might unload my copy of Iron Curtain to him. It looks interesting, and it's definitely a nice light game on the subject, and I really like that it has several different scenarios in different post-war periods representing different ideas of how a Third World War could have arisen. I think that's really cool, but there's also no supply rules, which is weird. I don't understand the thinking there. I think I need to look at the designer's notes, really, and trying to understand the thinking, because that doesn't sit right with me. There isn't a Pomka site in every hex, for example. I don't know that makes any sense. So, Bloody April. Okay, so there's two games called Bloody April. One of which, of course, is the old classic SPI Civil War Battle of Shiloh game. Okay. There is a GMT title also called Bloody April, which is another one of these operational air games. This one's set in World War I, and that one actually does look really quite interesting to me. So, I have no shortage, however, of games, right? I mean, it'll end up being a little less than this, but I think I'm over 250 war games. The number of non-war games on that list is A, really small, and B, that list does not contain expansions. So all those ASL boxes, for example, are in one line that says ASL. So, because it's just one game. It's all just add-ons to ASL and its various incarnations. Starter Kit admittedly gets its own line since it's a separate game system. Tom D, thanks for stopping by. I would like to thank everybody for stopping by if I have managed to miss calling you out specifically. We are up to 42 viewers. That is amazing. Like I mentioned before, I would like to kind of make this a regular thing. I don't want to give you too much exposure to my hideous mug at any point where people get tired of doing this. So I don't know if I want to do this every week or every month or every 2 weeks or whatever. But I think we'll do it, in addition to tonight, we'll try and do it again next Monday, which does not mean we've been going for about an hour and 10 minutes. Does not mean I'm ready to go yet. Although next time, I remembered this last time, halfway through, I need a bottle of water here because I'm doing a lot of talking. Half-inch counters, I prefer to use the 2mm corner rounder, but the 2.5 is fine for half-inch counters. If you're only going to buy one size of corner rounder, get the 2.5 because it's, by most tastes, not too big for half-inch, and it's not too small for 5/8 inch, and it is too small for like 1-inch counters. But unless you get a 3mm clipper, then anything or a 5mm clipper, there is one. Then anything you use is going to be too small on enormous counters like that. So if you're going to buy one, I've always recommended buy the 2.5. It's the most versatile. Yeah, I do have a wish list, by the way, on BGG. So if anybody wants to know the specifics of what I'm looking for, that is up there. I am Ardwulf on BGG, so you can find me. I really feel like that list, and I won't say that it's 100% airtight, but I really do feel like my legit want list is really getting quite tidy and manageable now. Now, of course, that doesn't include forthcoming products. So I've mentioned a number of forthcoming products I'm interested in, including, say, the Frank Chadwick Third World War, which I think we should see in 2021. I hope. I thought we were supposed to see it in 2019, to be honest. However, I am perfectly happy, having spent the money already, perfectly happy to have Compass or whoever take as much time as they need to perfect the thing. They want extra time in development. Can't hurt, right? So, Brian, GTS Greatest Day. Excuse me. Yes. So, GTS, the Greatest Day, Utah Beach is in development and quite far along at this point. It is currently in playtest, and I believe that it is nearing the end of its playtest period. So I think the idea is to get Race for Bastogne out first. But after Race for Bastogne comes out, then I think we will see the pre-order for Utah Beach. And then after that, they're going to do Omaha. I have seen the playtest. One of the guys that was playing GTS Market Garden with us at Winterfest brought his playtest map, his printed playtest map for Utah Beach. The map is done. It is the final map. It is gorgeous and it is huge. I would say it's of comparable size actually to the Gold Juno Sword map. Actually, looks great. Howard, this is Kalila 12-year. It's my favorite Scotch, or at least my favorite Scotch I can get in Ohio. It's this guy right here. Not hard to find, even in the whiskey wasteland that is Ohio, thanks to our Baroque Prohibition-era liquor laws here. Compass Games, what are my thoughts on Combat? So I haven't played Combat. I know that they had some printing issues with it at first. It's another one of those things where there's some people that have had complaints about it, but there's also some people who really, really like it. And there's either an expansion or another standalone set or something coming for it as well. My understanding I really haven't looked at it that closely, so take this for what it's worth. My understanding with it is that it is an attempt to do something very similar to what the Victory Games Ambush did, which is provide like a small unit scale World War II combat solitaire game. And it's supposed to be pretty good for that. I would be curious to take a closer look at it. The price on it is a little high. I mean, it contains a lot of components. So I don't want to say that it's too high. That's honestly the subject of another video, because wargame pricing is something that comes up a lot. And I don't want to start talking about that an hour and a half in. So maybe next week, that'll be our topic. Are war games too expensive? Because that's something that I hear a lot, and it's something that I have opinions on that are more nuanced than I think I can get out right now. So yeah, I would say, I mean, certainly it's a similar situation to Fields of Fire, where it is a solitaire game. It's pretty well regarded. It's got some really devoted fans. So I mean, I would say check out the BGG pages and or the Consim World group for it, and see if the discussion strikes an appealing tone for you. And there may have been some YouTube video on it as well. Bill, has you playtesting 2025? God, I hope it's not that long. I'm hoping now, realistically, right? I think maybe we'll see Bastogne in 2021. I think 2022 is more likely, and then I think another 2 years off of that, so 2024. So yeah, your 2025 date's probably not vastly unrealistic. Thinking about it, I think 2024, 2025 is about what we're looking at. That's a long time, man. On the other hand, the people I have talked to that are in the playtest say it's great. So, and as I will mention in the wrap-up video for the year, I like GTS a lot. There's definitely things I like better about CSS. And there are complaints I could make about various things, but at the end of the day, GTS is a lot of fun to play, and I think that's important. It's maybe the most important thing. Not for everybody, right? So there was years and years and years ago, I don't know if this is still a thing or not. In the tabletop role-playing world, there was this idea that there were three kinds of role-playing games. There were simulationist games and gamist games and narrativist games. This created this enormous philosophical discussion that lasted several years and eventually disappeared up its own ass. But nevertheless, for pedantic reasons, as labels, I think these are fairly useful terms, and I don't think they are necessarily less applicable to war games than they are to role-playing games. The context that we will use to place a game in one category or the other, with the caveat that no game is ever a pure gamist game or a pure narrativist game. Every game is a blend and falls somewhere on the spectrum. There are clearly narrativist war games, right? The obvious example is B-17, Queen of the Skies, or any of the many myriad of solitaire games that are now called narrative-driven solitaire war games. You're The Hunters, which is a great game, and Target for Today and Target for Tonight, and there's a B-29 thing from Legion War Games. There's what's the other one from the Destroyer one from Legion as well? I forget the name of it now. But so I mean, all these are narrativist games. I see OCS as a fundamentally gamist exercise, because when I play OCS, what I see is a puzzle. I have these tools, these pieces on the map. And by pieces, I mean units and supply. And here's my environment, here's what I need to accomplish in that environment. And here's the landscape on which I do that. It is absolutely, at least to some people, a very complicated puzzle. I think OCS is not a great simulation for the most part. And yet there are other Um, games that I think take the simulation aspect very seriously. One obvious example is, now whether he was pulling everybody's leg or not is another question. Campaign for North Africa, which is definitely an attempt to be a simulation. A thing like GOS, the Grand Operational Simulation Series, is a simulation. I think it's got a lot of simulation value. And just like games can have these labels applied to them, Picket Duty, thank you very much. That is the game I was thinking of. Gamers' tastes can have these same labels applied to them. So there are, for example, I haven't almost got an argument. At least I was taking it that way. With one of the guys on the Compass boards, who was not one of the official Compass guys, but one of the fans who was in the video chat at one point, who had just couldn't understand why people would play a monster game. It's like, well, you can't play, you can't play 10 games of it in this short period of time. You're not necessarily, you're playing whoever is willing to play, not the best. And it's like, well, that's fine, but I mean, so that guy, that is a completely reasonable and rational point of view, right? It's perfectly fine to be a competitive player and to want games that are small format games so that you can play a lot of more of the competitive games. It is also completely reasonable to want to play and experience a large format game. And that's where I am in a lot of ways. But it's certainly not true that the only things I ever play are giant monster games. I might joke about that. That does happen. But I mean, I certainly play a fair amount of smaller format games than Case Blue. That's for sure. Matt, thanks for stopping by. Who has made a joke about Japanese games. Brant, thanks for stopping by as well. So yeah, I mean, and this is one of the things that sort of kept me less interested in WBC for a while, because it is a tournament event. Now, that's not to say that it's all tournaments. It's not. But it is a tournament-focused event, and I'm not really into playing super competitively. I think I'm kind of a dick when I play super competitively. I like to win, sure, but the reason why I do these games is for the experience of the historical context of whatever the topic is, right? Which is why the most important thing for me is not necessarily that the rules themselves are airtight, which they almost never are, but that I am interested in the subject. If I am not interested in the subject, then I'm not going to enjoy the game. Now, that's not to say I, don't change my mind every once in a while, because that's happened too. But or a game is so good that after playing it, I become interested in that subject. That's a thing too. The takeaway here is everybody's got their own tastes, and I am not here to do this to complain that somebody else is doing it wrong. If they're having fun doing what they're doing the way they're doing it, good for them. Now, that said, if they become there's people that rub you the wrong way for various reasons, and you don't want to deal with them anymore, and that's fine too. There's no particular reason you have to be a jerk about it, but I don't want those people in my life, so that's that. H Tuna, thanks for stopping by. Yeah, Brant says there's actual research showing that most board wargamers are not motivated by competition, but rather other factors. I believe that. On the other hand, there's without disputing that, because if there's research showing it, hey, great. There is a certain marketability about tournaments that other forms of play and other styles of play don't necessarily have. And a game that is suitable for tournament play might end up getting the shit played out of it at something like a WBC. I mean, there's like I forget what it was. Like a lot of those ancient Avalon Hill games, right? That I would never consider playing locally here. They'll still have huge tournaments at WBC. I'm not going to play 1776 several times a year. That's just not going to happen. And I have a high opinion of 1776. There's people playing that at WBC every single year in a tournament. That a game is amenable to tournament play grants it a certain amount of marketability that other games might not necessarily have. Some large format games. Now, on the other hand, I'm gonna make the case that a large format game, we'll take OCS as our example, but you could pick whatever large format game you want. You could pick OCS or Labatt or whatever it is. That you go to an event, it's set up, and you play that game for 8, 10, 12 hour, whatever it is, a day for 5 or 7 or 8 days in a row. And that is a unique experience that I would really encourage that you to do if you have the opportunity at some point to do that. And there's only a few events at which you can do that. But you really get the chance to really immerse yourself and really see hey, I have this plan, okay? Well, I'm going to see turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4 happen today, right? We're playing Case Blue here at home. We might get it turned on a week. And it's a week later. I forgot to wear pants that day. I don't know what I was planning last week unless I wrote it down. And I'm usually not that organized. And this stuff is never happening at my place, by the way. If it's happening at your place and you can go down there and examine it and pre-calculate all the factors, then that's a little different. But I mean, that's a really interesting experience. And once I had done it, I was like, wow, this was really cool to do that, to sit there for 5 days, which is what we did. It was 5 days of Third Winter. To sit there for 5 days and play for 12 hours a day. It sounds grueling, and it kind of was. But it was also a lot of fun. You really got to stay in the game the whole time. I was worn down by the end of the week. But you have a lot more focus than and some people will falter in that situation, right? We have one of our regular guys is a kind of study whose house we do play at, who is a very study everything situation and be super deliberate. When he's forced under the gun to just go and make decisions, he doesn't make those good decisions when that happens. He is very much a studious guy. That is a somebody who might have better luck playing something like OCS on Vassal, where you could just pass the files back and forth and turn each turn and take as much time as you want. Brant, I have already talked about the OCS boot camp, so that was one of the first things we mentioned. Had you been here at 8 p.m. when the chat started, you would have heard that mentioned. So it has already been mentioned. So Brant, I'll mention it again because we might not have some of the same people. The Armchair Dragoons is having an online convention. It is January 15th through the 17th. Unfortunately, that's the same weekend as the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War online convention. So if you want to play Great Campaigns of the American Civil War, go to that. If you want to play anything else wargame-wise, check out the Armchair Dragoons thing. If you Google Armchair Dragoons, you will have at least what information is available at this time. I will be doing, I think at 8, I think it's at 8 p.m. on Saturday, an OCS boot camp, which will be 4 players. Four players will be playing, but it will be streamed, so you'll be able to watch it. People will be able to watch it afterwards, and we're going to sort of methodically work our way using the Smolensk game, work our way through teaching OCS. And not just the rules, but some of the practices that you need to be aware of as well. So we're going to... And it was really Smolensk that... Smolensk is in a lot of ways a bad intro game to OCS. But it's the one where I played it and it finally clicked for me. All the things just went kind of click, 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 click. And it's like, ooh, okay, I see what's going on here now. So it will teach you certain things that, say, Tunisia 2 will not teach you, but that you have to know in order to make the game work. So you have to understand extenders. There are no extenders in Tunisia 2. You have to use them, and you have to use them correctly in Smolensk, or as the Germans, you can get away without extenders as the Soviets, I think. But without extenders as the Germans, you're gonna lose badly. So yeah, we'll talk about that kind of stuff. I think Smolensk is a good opportunity for that. It actually splits. You might not think it splits very cleanly 4 ways, but it does. So we'll be having a good time with that. And Brant has kindly put a link in the chat for that. So it was hilarious because I was going to do Great Campaigns of the American Civil War for this, and then I found out that was the same weekend. I was like, well, all those people will be at the other event. So I am always happy to do more Great Campaigns of the American Civil War. That's fine. And as it is, I will probably try to stop in for at least a little bit of their event as well. So we'll see what happens. I might not play anything, but I might at least go to the developer roundtable, which I think is at 8 a.m. on Sunday. So we are now on 2 more sheets. Yeah, we've gotten a whole counter sheet and a half punched here. We're making great progress here. So yeah, they did. The Armchair Dragoons did an event in, what was that, Brent, in October. And it went fairly well as a, kind of a new and untested model of event. I thought it went fairly well. So it's going to be an online thing. Wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm not going to do this. I've already done a video on this. So if you want to get the tutorial on how to use Vassal, please check out my video on how to play games on Vassal. And in fact, I'm going to mention this to you, Brant, since you're still around. It's not a bad idea for you to link that video on your page so people can be introduced to Vassal ahead of the event. So awesome. That's great. I would be super interested if somebody were to run Brotherhood and Unity from Compass. That game looks really neat. And I have not had the chance to play it, but I'm not sure there's a Vassal module for it. I know when I checked, there was not, which is disappointing, to say the least. I know Mo likes it too, so July, August, okay. So it was earlier than I thought. I thought the idea was to kind of do the wargaming side of Origins that we weren't going to get since there was no Origins. So... but yeah, it's definitely 52 people. Holy cow. Look at that. So thanks definitely everybody for stopping in here and listening to me yammer and promote Brant's event, which is, it's something I was behind and involved in from the beginning anyway. So, yeah, definitely check that out. I know some of the games will be streamed, but I think not all of them will. Mine will be, because for one thing, I would like to give people the opportunity to watch it after the fact. I'll have to check that out, because I know at least a couple people who would like to play that, and the stumbling block before was that there was no Vassal module. So good. I should check the Vassal module situation for Stellar Horizons as well. We also have the guys out west going to do a Vassal TTS how-to session each. Oh, that's a good idea. So, we had the discussion a couple of weeks ago about Vassal versus Tabletop Simulator on Twitter, and I'm firmly in the Vassal camp. Not that I don't like Tabletop Simulator. I have Tabletop Simulator, and I've monkeyed with it a little bit. But the fact of the matter is that the kinds of games that I lean towards are games that Vassal is better at than Tabletop Simulator. So that is a personal taste and a personal choice in this particular case. No, yeah, it's not just Brant. There's a whole team involved, including events people and other people, and wouldn't be a terrible idea to maybe do some cross promotion with the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War guys. Thinking about it. since they're going to have, they've released their schedule already. It's a pretty loose schedule right now, so they haven't actually assigned specific games. At some point in 2021, on the list is more Great Campaigns of the American Civil War. Yeah, Terrence, thanks for stopping by. Tabletop Simulator works well with games that don't have large footprints, that don't have significant stacking, and that don't have a large play, like a long play time. It's a really neat platform, and I think it's one of the reasons why it's taken off in the wargaming community to the extent that it has, is that there's a person who is doing Tabletop Simulator modules for tons of old SPI titles. And these are games that fit that format, right? They're small footprint, they don't have a lot of stacking, they don't have a lot of tables, they don't have a lot of rules referencing or charts or anything like that, they don't have player aid cards, there's a CRT, it's right on the map. These are games that work well in Tabletop Simulator, and they take a couple hours to play, maybe. Something like OCS would be hopeless on Tabletop Simulator. And not just OCS. Games, a lot of the games that I just am making these decisions on now of, hey, this series and that series are series that I want to double down on. OCS and GTS and the Library of Napoleonic Battles. These are all games that would not work well on Tabletop Simulator because they're too long, or they're too big, or there's too much stacking, or there's too many tables. But again, if for folks who just really want to just play, replay the battles out of the Korean War Quad, or some of the old SPI stuff, some of the old SPI classics, and for whom Tabletop Simulator is working, then yeah, use Tabletop Simulator. The other thing with that is, for miniatures, if you want to have a virtual tabletop for miniatures, Tabletop Simulator is your logical choice. People do it in Vassal. I don't understand why. It would have to be ass. There's no way that you're getting any sense of any of the things, the perspective that you would need to have for a miniatures game, or at least heavily want to have, where you would have those things in Tabletop Simulator. So it's all about what kinds of games you like and which platform is better suited to those kinds of games. There's also War Planner. Sun Tzu is still around somehow, inexplicably. There's another one called Tabletopia, which has no content that I'm interested in at all. But hey, that's me. The War Planner doesn't have much. There's a lot of, if I'm remembering the site correctly, War Planner has some interesting things, but again, it doesn't do anything that Vassal doesn't do, and I would just use Vassal because I'm invested in the Vassal infrastructure already. I'll tell you something else. The new Atlantic Wall module is an enormous improvement over the old Atlantic Wall module. And by new, I mean it's about 2 years old now. The old one didn't have any of the scenario setups. And it's a huge amount of work doing the scenario setups in GOS. So I think what we're going to do is have a tiny additional drop here. About half a dram this time, since I'm not done yet. And since I find myself in need of a little muscle relaxer right now, and there's no better muscle relaxer than Scotch. Commands and Colors would work great in Tabletop Simulator. There's no reason why it wouldn't. And I've seen Jim playing Commands and Colors on Tabletop Simulator. Yeah, I mean it would work. It would work really well. Now I hasten to add I don't do miniatures. I religiously don't do miniatures because it's not that I don't like miniatures, and I have done miniatures in the past, but I now take the position that I don't have time for the extra hobby that miniatures represents. Miniatures is a whole other hobby that is, it's the painting and the modeling and the buying of the expensive figures and the learning how to paint and gradually getting better as a painter and all that. Those are all worthwhile activities that I do not have time for. So that's why I don't do miniatures anymore. And for my tastes, the kinds of things I generally like to do, which are heavier games, by and large, is a niche that is better filled by tabletop war games than it is by miniature games. There's definitely certainly see the appeal in miniatures games. It's certainly a fulfilling hobby. It's certainly a hobby that a lot of people are into, but it's just not where I'm at. So. There's a lot of old SPI stuff on Tabletop Simulator. I will tell you that. I can tell you that Freedom in the Galaxy has a module. That's one I think would not play well on Tabletop Simulator, however, because there's too many tables. I think we're about done with our actual clipping at this point. And I would like to go another 20 minutes or so. So, we've done about 3 counter sheets. I'm pretty fast at this point. I am struggling, however, to come up with a storage methodology for the Grand Tactical series because they're all quite large games, and in all cases, it's a bit of a challenge to get them back in the box. So I am contemplating at this point an outside-the-box storage solution. We'll see how that works out. It's going to wait till after the holidays. Terrence, we're going to try to bring you some Goss play on the channel. There's discussions have begun on that. There's a few challenges, but in that, if you don't own the game, you don't have the tables, and the tables aren't in the module. So, but nevertheless, we're going to try and do some Goss play. I think where I was with Goss was that it's a game system that has a lot of pretty tightly integrated subsystems that you kind of need to understand how they work together. But overall, the actual nuts and bolts of doing it, of movement and combat and stuff like that, are not really as complicated as it looks from that terrible rulebook that originally got published. The new Lucky Forward rulebook is definitely a lot better. Now, I holding off on a final opinion on that till we actually sit down and play it, and I use it as a table reference for a while. But it's definitely better than it was. ACW campaign games with minis. That's great. I don't do miniatures. I'm all about the American Civil War. I have no less than 3 systems that I am monitoring closely that are American Civil War systems. That's the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War, the Great Battles of the American Civil War, and the Line of Battle series from Multiman, of which there's a 4th game in the works. Another one that is on my wish list is None But Heroes. That's the Line of Battle treatment of Antietam. I've played it. It's pretty great. Unfortunately, I'm unable to score a reasonably priced copy. But at some point, just be patient. It'll happen. Yeah, so that's my understanding, Mark. Thanks for stopping by. Is that in the UK, when people hear the word wargaming, by and large, what they are thinking of is miniatures. And that's fine. That's not a crime or anything. But by and large, I think when people hear the term wargaming here in the US, unless they are tabletop wargamers, what they are largely thinking of are things like Risk or Axis and Allies. or maybe that War of the Ring, the big fancy War of the Ring game, which I've played and which is pretty great, by the way. Rather than A Time for Trumpets or Red Storm or OCS or whatever. We are in a niche here in this corner of the tabletop analog gaming hobby, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. It just happens to be the niche that I'm interested in. I'm interested in historical games, some of which don't necessarily present as war games. I'm super interested in a couple of things that Fourth Circle has in the pipeline, for example, that are totally not war games. Gleam of Bayonets. I actually have a copy of that. I have an unboxed copy that came in a Ziploc. It didn't originally come in a Ziploc. That's how I got it. And it actually looks like a pretty interesting game. I mean, it's the Great Battles of the American Civil War system, but it's closer to the original system as seen in Terrible Swift Sword and stuff like that. At this point, though, you're going to see, I think it's going to be Pea Ridge or Wilson's Creek. Pea Ridge or Wilson's Creek coming to the channel pretty soon, and this is going to be the old Great Battles of the American Civil War system. I am really curious to play that because I want to explore how that system has changed, having played a fair amount of it, the modern iteration between Death Valley and 3 Days of Gettysburg and Dead of Winter. I really want to see the original iteration of the series as well. So I look forward to bringing you that. And that reminds me that I have an email that needs to get sent on that subject. So you're never going to have enough time to do everything that you want to do, right, in general. And gaming is just one dimension of that eternal problem. Yeah, so I want to say there might be a new version of Antietam coming down the pipeline from the Great Battles of the American Civil War people, but it's going to be a while before it pops up. I mean, the next one is going to be Shiloh. The next one after that is probably going to be that expansion pack for Death Valley that's been talked about, which definitely will be worthwhile. And then maybe we'll see Antietam, but it'll be the first treatment of that since like 1987 when TSR, I think that's the year that that was released. The interesting thing is I've played Pea Ridge in a different game system before. I have not played Wilson's Creek. And I think we did not have a vassal module at the time for Pea Ridge. That's another piece of big news for those who have not heard it. Thanks, Brant, for stopping by. We will be mentioning the Armchair Dragoons event next week in the stream as well. I forgot what I was going to say now. Dang it. But yep, forgot. Off we go. So that's okay. I've been drinking a little bit here too. So, yeah. So the next line of battle game is called No Turn. I think it's called No Turning Back, and it is about the Battle of the Wilderness. That's a super interesting subject. And I have talked to Chip Farr, who is the developer of it, and it sounds like it's going to be really cool. Oh, right. The other thing, the big vassal news was that, barring half a dozen things, Decision Games is now allowing vassal modules for its games and for SPI's games to be posted on the vassal website. So if it's not there right now, keep checking, because I will tell you from knowing the guy on this corner with the trench coat with the SPI vassal modules in it, there are vassal modules for a lot of those games. So just stay tuned on the vassal website. You're going to start seeing those pop up. News on a GBOH game. So here's what I've heard. And I don't know that this is insider information. This is all stuff that people have talked about on podcasts and stuff. There's the Great Battles of Julius Caesar reprint. You know how I knew that was going to happen? Because I finally managed to get the old one. But it's going to include Great Battles of Julius Caesar, all the expansions for that. Caesar Conquest of Gaul, all the expansions for that. And those expansions are hard to get. I also just got those. So, go figure. I have heard that there is going to be and this might not be the name of it, that there is going to be something like Hoplite 2, which is going to contain all of the remaining battles of the Peloponnesian Wars that have not already been covered by the Great Battles of History series. If that materializes, and I know that I would imagine that Mark Herman is going to be the big driver of any such effort right now, and I think Mark is stuck on the opposite coast away from home and his development materials for a lot of his stuff. So anything that Mark is involved in, it might end up being delayed for that reason. There's also the Mark has promised to finish an unfinished Richard Berg game, Thunderbolt, the third game in the Ancient World series. That is a great series that I like a ton, and I always wanted more volumes in it, so we're finally going to get our second Punic War game that we wanted for all these years. So that's pretty much what I know about Great Battles of History right now. It is already true that other people besides Mark Herman and Richard Berg have done Great Battles of History games, so I am positive that that series is going to continue despite the passing of Richard Berg. I'm less clear on that with, say, Men of Iron, because he did all 4 games in that series. I hope that somebody picks it up, but I haven't heard anything about that. And if you haven't seen it, I do highly recommend the Men of Iron tri-pack. It's a fabulous value package, just like Death Valley. There's just a ton of content in it, and it's a great value for the price. It's not terribly cheap, but it's not crazy expensive, and there's just tons of value in it. So any of those big multi-packs with tons of battles in them, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. The Musket and Pike dual pack will be coming along at some point from GMT, probably mid next year would be my guess. Terrence, if you want to talk to me about that, I will be delighted to have that discussion with you. Email me at ardwulfslair, all one word, at gmail.com, and we can talk about that. We can talk trade or sale or whatever you want. If we talk sale, I don't have any money right now, so we might have to wait until January when I sell a bunch more stuff, but I'm guessing you're going to be okay with that if that happens. But yeah, that's another one that's on my wish list. The Coming Storm, which is the only one of the Library of Napoleonic Battles that I don't have. It's the first one, and it's the one on the Jena Auerstadt campaign, which is a fascinating campaign. I kind of hope that OSG will redo that at some point, because the maps aren't up to the current standard, the counters aren't up to the current standard. So Fighting Formations, I think, was a Chad Jensen project, and unfortunately, there's some people that really liked that system, and I suspect, unfortunately, that series is not probably going to go any farther without Chad. That's my sense of that. I don't have any information to that effect. I would be delighted to be contradicted. But that is a game system that those people that did try it liked a lot. So Howard's asking, of the 3 ACW gaming systems that you're playing, can you give a recommendation and why? Okay, so they're all different, okay? On the one hand, you have the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War, which is an operational series. The scale is 1 mile per hex, 1 turn per day. Unit scale is divisions and brigades. Okay, so it's very much about the maneuver at the operational level. It is not about the battles so much. Great Battles of the American Civil War, obviously, and Line of Battle are about the battles. Those are both regimental battles games. I think both games have quite a bit to recommend them. There are things that where I prefer one or the other, but they're both kind of equally balanced in that respect. I like the physical components of the Great Battles of the American Civil War better than the Line of Battle components. I think they are better components. The maps are more attractive and they are easier to use. On the other hand, I like the play flow of line of battle a little better, and because it's not a chit pull system, but you have the written orders system, which you can ignore if you want. The rulebook says you can ignore this if you want, but I don't know why you would. I think that's cool. So you do have that. You do definitely. It is super frustrating to play, for example, the Union at Antietam, because you suffer from having a clown as your army leader. That's super frustrating. But probably you want that, to be honest, if you are saddled with George McClellan. The current iteration of Great Battles of the American Civil War is a chit pull system. It's quite different, I think, from the original game from SPI, a game series from SPI. So it has all that command control kind of built into its chit pull system as well. But you're never quite as, you're frustrated because the chit that you wanted didn't come up, but you're never as frustrated that you can't make the rolls that you make every turn, that you fail the rolls every turn with McClellan and you can't get an order off. So it's different. Both games have unit strength tallied with separate counters that go under the main counter. Both systems use unit facing, and at the regimental scale at Civil War you kind of need to. Blind Swords does not. And Blind Swords is neat. It definitely is easy to play. But there was something missing in either my own understanding or the system. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I would never choose to play Line of Battle without the written rules. You can, it says that, but I would never want to play it without that. That adds so much to the game that I think you want to play with it. And hell, you might as well play with it with other games too. It would be easy enough to just say, hey, here's some index cards, write out your orders, and then you got to try and do your best to stick to that. Yeah, I mean, Stigler, thanks for stopping by. But yeah, I mean, it's the subject of command control is I think one of the more interesting topics that war games can allow you to experience. And I am interested in very few games that don't take those that into account at all. And especially in the American Civil War, where a lot of times your shit just isn't happening the way it's supposed to happen. And you can see that in all three of these game systems, right? You can see it in Great Campaigns, you can see it in Great Battles, you can see it in Line of Battle. It's just exactly where the frustration takes place. Another thing with, I know that Dean has a very hand-wavy approach to like line of sight, for example, in Line of Battle, and certainly that's the way we played it. But if you try to be a real stickler with those line of sight rules, then I think you're probably going to end up getting stuck. You can absolutely just do it in a sort of gentleman's handshake type of treatment, which is what we did, and I was pretty happy to do that. But if you want airtight line of sight rules, then you're going to probably be frustrated with those line of sight rules. The line of sight rules in Great Battles of the American Civil War are a little bit fiddly as well, but they're not as fiddly, and there aren't 37 different elevation levels, for example, in any particular game. I think there's about 25 different elevation levels on the Gettysburg battlefield in Last Chance for Victory, for example, which is a magnificent package. And is that justified? Maybe. I don't know. It's definitely a headache to keep track of on the actual map. I can tell you that. I really like the written order system in both Line of Battle and in I never played the Civil War Brigade series, but in the TCS series as well. I think that's a really interesting idea. It adds an interesting dimension to the command control. I really like that. Yeah, Stigler says he learned more about First Manassas from Red Badge of Courage than in 2 books on the subject. All Green Alike is the name of the first Bull Run module for Great Campaigns of the American Civil War, and that's a really nice package as well. I like all 3 of these series. I would recommend all of them, but my number one recommendation, almost above any other war game series, regardless of topic, is the Great Campaigns of the American Civil War series, which is an amazing game series. It's really amazing to play. It's different every time. The replayability is insane. The games themselves, certainly the recent games from Multiman, are expensive, but they also have a tremendous value in those boxes. In terms of replayability and number of scenarios and all that stuff. So if I'm going to recommend, and where I am tending to be most interested in the long term at the operational level, and that's a factor too. That's a taste factor. And the Great Campaigns really brings that to life. Really brings those challenges of maneuver to life. It really makes it frustrating for Robert E. Lee on July 1st, 1863, to try to get that grand, or just second actually, and the third, to try and get that grand assault off, to get everybody in the right position, and then give the orders to get the grand assault off and annihilate the Union Army, and it just doesn't happen. Great Campaigns really brings that to life. To get those guys to the battlefield, everything's got to happen exactly right for you to get that decisive battle. This is something that people criticize the series about. It says, well, it's really hard to get a really decisive battle to happen. Well, yeah, that's the point. It's really difficult to do that. That's why Rosecrans falls apart at Chickamauga, and why Lee does not get his grand assault off at Gettysburg. And why McClellan does not beat the pants off the Confederate Army at Antietam, even though he outnumbers them substantially, because he's unable to bring all of his forces to bear properly at the right time. And Great Campaigns shows you that. Yeah, I mean, that's true, but I mean, so Stigler says to him, dice determine the flow of the game, and that's true, but that doesn't bother me at all. That means that I may have a plan, but I need to maintain flexibility in that plan, because I don't know if I'm going to get to go next. The other guy might get 5 turns in a row. I've seen that happen. I love that. McClellan was an idiot. Well, I mean, McClellan had his virtues as a commander. Just actually commanding on the actual battlefield was not one of them. So, as a recruiter and organizer, he did a fine job. But remember that Great Campaigns and Great Battles are showing you two very different things. And despite the similarity in the names of the systems, they're really not particularly comparable. If you want insight on the battle, the day of battle, then Great Battles is your game, right? Because it's going to give you that, even if it's a big multi-day battle like Gettysburg. If you want instead the opportunity to see, okay, we're going to zoom out now, and we're going to have this map that covers basically everything within 30 or 50 miles of Gettysburg. We're going to see how the armies maneuvered into that position, and why what happened, and why the challenges that the actual army leaders faced in that engagement. Then operationally, Great Campaigns is going to show you that. So, but what Stigler says here is not wrong. It just doesn't bug me at all. So, yeah, he should have been head quartermaster. You're absolutely right. He was very good at organization. He was just a clown when it came to the actual battlefield. So we are just about 2 hours in. I would like to give everybody the opportunity to ask any last minute questions that you might have. Or otherwise, I'm going to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes or so. Stigler, level with me here. Are we going to see a new version of River of Death? New version of Chickamauga, or what? Because it's the one that I don't have in the series, the current series. And I'd really like to see that particular battle, because that's a fascinating battle. And it's impossible to get. It hardly ever even shows up on eBay. So I'd actually kind of like to see a new version of 3 Days of Gettysburg as well, a new somewhat cleaned up version. I'm really happy with the direction that series is taking nowadays. There's a definite step forward in the Death Valley package. It's a great package. It's a nice cleaned up rule book. There were some issues with the rule book in the past that I think it was fairly inexcusable that wasn't cleaned up, because that series had been around for so long and there'd been at least 4 or 5 different versions of those rules just from GMT. If they do that 3-pack reprint of 3 Days of Gettysburg, River of Death, and Red Badge of Courage, that is an insanely large package that I would buy in a heartbeat. So yeah, I mean that is a factor, Purple Norseman, that the Bill, send me an email, Ardwulfslair at gmail.com. The McClellan was getting his information from the Pinkertons, which were supposed to be the best place to get that kind of intelligence at the time, and they were giving him shit information. Terrence, I'm not a big PC wargamer. I think PC wargamers are mostly super disappointing. I will occasionally do the Gary Grigsby stuff, the War in the East, War in the West, and I'm looking at the War in the Pacific. That's supposed to be very good as well. So, Dan, yeah, everything's going good. Thanks for stopping by. We'll try and schedule these things in a fortuitous way. We're going to shoot for next Monday, by the way. For those who didn't catch this earlier, we're going to shoot for next Monday, 8 p.m. That should not be a problem. It's going to be after the holiday. And then we'll probably try and do one for the new year as well. I guess I might as well take a wild leap and say we're going to shoot for January 4th as well. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, everything's going good. We're still getting settled in, still getting stuff out of the storage unit and stuff like that. Of course, there's things that I like, oh, I need this right now, and I can't, I know where it is. It's all the way in the back of the storage unit. Yeah, that War in the Pacific is on sale. I mentioned this earlier. That's on sale for Matrix Games right now. So if you are interested in that, definitely pick it up now. It's like $17 as opposed to $80. So if you're into that, and for that price, it'll be on sale until January 10th. So, man, I've been clipped. I got like 3 counter sheets clipped, Alan. You missed all that. I stopped clipping when I got to the finished the third counter sheet. So I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by. We've had a gangbusting, we had 52 people at one point. That's amazing for this kind of thing, I think. It might be that if I do this too often, people will stop showing up, so we'll see how it goes. But nothing else is really happening on Monday nights. And right now it's holidays. People are doing a lot of sitting around anyway. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody. There's a couple more videos coming out this week that are scheduled videos, so stay tuned for those. We'll do another live stream, hopefully on next Monday, the 28th. And everybody have a great holiday. Hopefully everybody will have a good Christmas or whatever it is that you might be celebrating the rest of the week and over the weekend. So everybody have a great night.